Okay, our next speaker is Margot Tan, to be followed by Tom Gorman.
Yeah, Margaret!
Hi. So my name is Margot Tan, and I'm a student at Binghamton University. I'm not here to talk about...
Excuse me, Margaret, Ms. Tan, could you speak directly into the mic, please?
Oh, it's...
Thank you.
So I'm not here to talk about why fracking is good or bad, because that's not going to help the DEC in making a decision on whether or not to withdraw the DSGIS. Rather, I wish to present you with reasons why we must not allow this draft to be considered the final draft. As others have said tonight, the DSGIS is a poor excuse for an EIS. It would be embarrassing for you guys to treat it as the final draft. Regardless of the potential gains and losses of hydrofracking, I ask that the DSGIS be revised and fracking not proceed until until the document accurately addresses all the environmental impacts and not just the ones that are brought tonight. I know a lot of people have said that we don't want to wait any longer, that the gas companies don't want to wait any longer, that they want to drill now. But why do we care so much about what the gas companies want? Why don't we worry about our neighbors instead before we worry about what the gas companies will do? Like, we're the people who will be affected most by the fracking. So let's just forget about the gas companies and worry about what the people want before we think about what we should do next.
Thank you. Tom Gorman, to be followed by Steve Westcott.
Hello, my name is Tom Gorman. I live on Horan Road in the town of Vestal, about 5 miles from here. I am the second generation of Gormans on Horan Road. We've been there for 56 years. I'm a graduate of the Vestal school system and Binghamton University. I worked for the New York State Tax Department for 31 years, 21 as a manager. I'm retired now to my 83-acre farm. I have raised and sold Christmas trees since 1977. I have restored an old farmhouse and a barn in that time. I have no intention of ever leaving the land, and I am in favor of having drilling even on my property. No problem, let's do it. I believe it could be done in an entirely safe manner. I say this because I have visited a natural gas well site in Pennsylvania and seen the best practices of the industry. These practices include a closed cycle for processing water and chemicals, a 4-step system to prevent spills, an earthen berm, heavy millimeter plastic, topped by felt, and covered by a hard plastic surface. Moreover, the chemicals used for fracking have been shown to be non-carcinogenic, and the number and use have been reduced.
Again, folks, please hold your comments, laughter, until after. Please continue, sir.
And since I have some time left, I'd like to relate a story to you. It's a true story. I have a daughter. Her name is Lisa. She graduated from Vestal in 1990. She went to the local school, Binghamton, Broome Community College, BCC, graduated from there 2 years later, after which it was time for her to continue her education and get her 4-year degree. I asked her where she wanted to go. She said, Colorado State University. I said, fine, I'm for it. You get the degree and I'll pay for it. Well, time went along, 3 years went by, it took her 3 years instead of 2, but she got her degree. And when she had her degree, she and I engaged in a dialogue, and that dialogue went to the effect, gee, Lisa, I'd love to have you come home. Gee, Daddy, I can't come home for this reason, or I can't come home for that reason. And finally, and I would counter the argument that she would give to me, but finally she gave an argument that I couldn't counter. She said, Daddy, there's no jobs. That was 20 years ago. Back then, Broome County's population was 220,000. Now it's 190,000. Folks, we need the natural gas just to keep our kids at home. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Steve Westcott, to be followed by Jonathan Strong.
Oh, bear with me, I'm tired. I had a lot of things wrote down that I was going to talk about, but after listening to a lot of the stuff here tonight, My son works on one of the gas rigs in Pennsylvania, and I thank God that he's got a job. You know, they're right now, he's worked for them for like 2 years. He makes good money. 4 of his friends were out of work. They went, they applied. They now all work for Chesapeake as well. They've just been informed that they may be moving to Ohio because these gas companies aren't going to sit around too much longer and take the crap that New York's putting out. This is where they wanted to come. You know, and between the 5 of them, that's about $500,000 worth of revenue that you're sending to Ohio. You know, you people got to wake up. We need this. This state is in trouble. This country is in trouble. We have one of the best resources right underneath our feet. Out west, they've just found that we have one of the biggest oil reserves in the world. We can't get to it because the environmentalists are fighting the pipelines. We're paying $4 a gallon for gasoline. We should be paying $1. It's terrible. The environmentalists are ruining this country. I hate to say it.
Again, folks, you need to be respectful of the speaker. Whether you agree with the
right.
opinions
That's
being
all right.
expressed or not is irrelevant.
That's fine.
Allow the speaker to finish.
That's fine. The professional protesters are here. You know, half of them are down occupying Binghamton earlier today, and they're all here. There's probably none of them down there right now. It's warmer in here anyways. You know, I hate to say it, but New York is missing the boat. It is business unfriendly, and we need to change our ways, and I'm not going to take any more of your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, ladies and gentlemen, please be respectful of the speakers. Thank you. Jonathan Strong, followed by Jerry Wiley.
My name is Jonathan Strong. I live in the West Corners section of Endicott. For 5.5 years, I was a trial attorney for the Water Enforcement Branch of EPA Region 2. I have seen spills, chemical spills. I have prosecuted the spillers. As some of the signs said outside, I am a friend of clean water. I also have stock holdings in gas drilling companies. So as some of the other signs have said outside, I'm a friend of natural gas. Before I worked for the EPA, I worked for the Interior Department, and I enforced the mine health and safety laws in this country. And I have been the shop steward in 2 unions. I am a friend of workers and worker safety. On the other hand, I also have stock holdings in oil pipeline companies and gas pipeline companies. I'm a friend of natural gas. I've worked for HUD, and I've been a tenant advocate, and I'm in favor of low-income housing and affordable housing. That being said, that's enough about me. Let's talk about the SGEIS. It is deficient, it is incomplete, and it is legally defective. In 3 areas I will try to discuss in my time that I had believed not been discussed before. First, one is the work schedules that the fracking industry imposes on its workers. The typical work schedule is 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, 2 weeks in a row. What does that? That leads to worker fatigue. Worker fatigue leads to accidents. Accidents that hurt workers, hurt co-workers, hurt neighbors, hurt the environment. The DEC should require in its permits that there are reasonable hours required, restrictions on worker hours of any permit, so that these accidents that are just waiting to happen from fatigued workers do not happen. The second aspect of the DEC, the SGEIS, that is deficient and legally defective is that there's not a single mention of surface subsidence and its possibility. There's been surface subsidence in Onondaga County because of salt mining. There's surface mining throughout Pennsylvania from coal mining, and there's not a single mention in Chapter 4 geology about surface subsidence or its possibility. And finally, the EAR does refer to the potential of increased rents, as it has happened in Bradford County and throughout Pennsylvania, and the effect on low-income housing. the SGEIS should have mitigation measures that should be taken to alleviate the decrease in low-income housing that is sure to result. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry Wiley, to be followed by Tim O'Hara.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Wiley. I'm a registered nurse from Owego. The DEC looked at countless risks of hydrofracking, yet chose not to prohibit it. Why would they do that? These are bright, educated folks who have a mission to protect the environment. Why would they want to turn our beautiful state into a giant Willy Wonka factory? So I said to myself, they don't. They're being pressured. So they're trying to get us riled up enough to kick out this corporate greed machine. Otherwise, they wouldn't mess with our minds by writing that gas drillers need to have a wastewater disposal plan, knowing that New York State doesn't have a single viable treatment and disposal option, leading us to envision midnight dumping parties throughout the state. I can hear the DEC staff now, and here's Betty and Bob from the DEC. This disposal issue's really gonna knock their socks off, Bob. Oh, yes. And can you picture the faces of the thousands of people with private unfiltered wells when we make their setback distance 500 feet and that of New York City and Syracuse watershed 4,000 feet? They'll be so ripping mad, I love it. Oh, how about this, Bob? Let's spell out in table 6.63 exactly how many additional heavy trucks are going to roll past through their little villages in just Broome, Tioga, and Chemung counties by year 10. 500,000 per day. Ooh, that'll be the clincher, Betty. That'll wake them up to what fracking's all about. Hey, Betty, you know how much flooding they've been having down in the southern tier? They're a little slow to catch on, but I think they're starting to get it that we're in big trouble with climate change. I'm thinking they'll really get steamed if we tell them about all the greenhouse gas emissions from the well sites, compressor stations, diesel trucks, generators, not to mention all the pipelines. I hope we haven't gone over the top, Bob. We might end up with a bunch of raving maniacs jumping up and down, holding rallies, writing thousands of comments to the DEC, to us saying our document is woefully inadequate. You're right, Betty. They don't understand. We just want them to rise up and ban fracking so we can stop all this nonsense. Thank you, DEC, for waking us up to protect our future.
Thank you. Tim O'Hara, to be followed by Cameron Williams.
I was born and raised in the Binghamton area, as was my father, who passionately practiced medicine in this region until his death 8 years ago. He spent his career healing, and I believe would be distraught over the sickness that has overtaken many of us as we debate whether or not to poison our soils and water to enrich powerful business interests. A few years ago, my wife and I were looking for a location in New York State to start our sister project to our successful Sustainable Living Center based in Costa Rica. That was when I was first introduced to the term fracking and ultimately the issue that made us reticent about resettling in this region. The frustration, uncertainty, and fear that we encountered when talking to friends here was dispiriting. Each year I've grown more concerned about and aware of the impact of hydraulic fracturing on communities and the environment, and yesterday decided that I could not sit quiet any longer. To listen to the lies and rhetoric of large energy companies who will do anything within their power to squeeze the last drop of oil and the final cubic meter of natural gas from this planet has become an unrelenting source of anger and frustration. Their efforts are fracking communities across the state as residents feel compelled to take one side or the other. The millions being spent by energy companies to distort the truth should be enough for all of us to say no more. People note and write about the strength of the people of this region as they get back on their feet after our second 100-year flood in 5 years, and yet we're told that we need to embrace gas companies that propose to further pollute our environment and contribute to ever more complexing weather patterns and are putting at risk our very livelihoods. Visitors to the southern tier comment on the region's beautiful rolling hills and forests as we lease them to those that intend to rape them. We take pride in our agricultural heritage, yet sit idle as farms disappear by the dozens and farmers feel handcuffed and overcome by the temptation of high prices offered to them for their precious land by energy companies. Big Energy tells us that without them, their lofty social goals and their jobs that will never achieve economic or energy security, we are subject to this onslaught of misinformation as we're pressured by neighbors, businesses, and industry to destroy our patrimony for short-term gain. We watch as we're told that we need to choose between the destruction of our environment and the bankruptcy of our economy, when in reality, economic health and a strong environment are not mutually exclusive. We need more than ever to develop sound strategies that can heal both the financial system and our watersheds. At our Sustainable Living Center in rural Costa Rica, we capture methane from the breakdown of human and animal waste to cook with in order to reduce our dependence on imported propane. Methane or natural gas to us is a resource that we're able to produce with the simplest of non-polluting technologies. A $500 methane digester will provide us with cooking gas for decades. The process of hydraulic fracturing is a polluting industrial technology in the antithesis of our small digester. We must take advantage of the momentum that's been created by the delay of the Keystone XL tar sands pipeline and the various Occupy movements throughout the world. Protests do
Thank
work.
you, sir.
Stand up and exercise
time
your
is up.
rights. Democracy now.
Cameron Williams, to be followed by Mark Zaghetti.
Good evening. My name is Cameron Williams, and I'm speaking as a concerned resident from Ulster County, New York. If fracking is safe, why did the gas companies need exemptions from the Clean Air, Clean Water, and Superfund Acts? I listened to the comments this afternoon, both pro and against, and understand the need for jobs, but hydrofracking is not the answer for New York. Green jobs are. The DEC SGEIS has several glaring omissions. Number one, no health impact evaluation. Number two, no regulations proposed for wastewater disposal. And number three, no economic impact evaluation. The Marcellus Shale in New York contains high levels of radium-226, known to cause bone cancer and aplastic anemia. The DEC SGEIS includes radiation measurements from several conventional gas wells in New York, most notably 2 wells in Orange and Schuyler County. One well's production brine contained 16,030 picocuries per liter, the other 13,510. The EPA safe limit is 5 picocuries per liter. Interestingly, the DEC SGEIS uses data from Pennsylvania and West Virginia to measure radium levels in the flowback fluid, which range from 2.58 picocuries per liter to 33 picocuries. Even though radium in Pennsylvania and West Virginia is estimated to be much lower than in New York, according to the New York Times. Geologist and professor Terry Engelder of Penn State, an early and current advocate for hydrofracking, admits there probably can never be enough regulations, particularly if you're on the side of really making sure this is done right. The DEC SGEIS does not give me the feeling that New York State is interested in doing it right, particularly when it is currently allowing radioactive production brine to be spread on roads for de-icing in 15 counties in New York State. I spoke earlier of green jobs. There's a development in New Paltz called Green Acres. It's the first net zero energy development, single-family homes in the world, and the first in New York State. This is the path we should be taking, pursuing projects like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mark Zaghetti, to be followed by Chris Kale.
I didn't come here to speak. The facts, I believe, are well known to you at the DEC. If anything substantive and new comes to light, I'll be shocked and amazed. I came here to bear witness to how we the people address the most substantive economic opportunity of a lifetime or more. To see firsthand those who would deny my legitimate deeded rights, all of the legitimate means employed to support my family, this should be the best if managed properly. I am confident that our DEC can do just that if science trumps the politics. As a Broome County resident, I live in what is expected to be a major development zone. It's gratifying to see so many friends and neighbors here stand up for our deeded rights. Frankly, I see the same faces that I saw at a similar event in 2008, making the alleged rush to legislate such a farce. To the outsiders present today, I say your numbers do not convey the right to do us wrong. In a pure numbers game, Binghamton is unlikely to surpass New York City or the other cities involved. When it comes to votes and sideshows, New York City rocks. Fortunately, property rights are no more subject to majority vote than a gang rape. The taking lawsuits are sure to follow. I urge the state to finalize this process. Enough time has passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Kale, to be followed by Gary Hinneman.
Thank you for having this hearing. My name's Chris Kale. I'm here this evening in my role as the Gas Drilling Subcommittee Chair of the Northeast Organic Farming Association of New York. We are very concerned about the situation with the SGEIS. We actually were concerned, and we forwarded a letter to Commissioner Martens, which was also signed on to by over 100 other agricultural organizations and agricultural businesses. We have grave concerns that neither the department itself nor the various people who were put on the advisory committee has the required expertise to truly truly understand the effects that would take place were this to go forward on our industry, agriculture. Currently, agriculture is the mainstay of the rural economy in this area and in New York State. You know, everybody wants jobs. We like to think from NOFA New York that we're really reviving agriculture. You know, we have a lot of the farms that are highly profitable. Our farmers don't tend to also, you know, identify themselves as retired. A lot of them are younger. And we have a lot of young farmers who really want land to farm. And sometimes they have trouble accessing it. When we talk about jobs, our group, you know, we're busy, but we've been doing a lot of research. And our group looked at what really did happen between New York and Pennsylvania in terms of jobs between 2005 and 2010, looking at the U.S. Labor Department statistics. What we found was shocking, really, given what's out there. During that period of time, there were job losses both in Pennsylvania and New York in aggregate. However, the job losses in Pennsylvania were 9 for every 1 in New York State. So, you know, we do want jobs, but we need to look very closely at the industries that may be harmed as well as and lose jobs. In particular, we think that the E&E study in the SGEIS is, it subtracts no numbers, and that just can't be. It needs to be done properly. And that would involve an assessment that looked at not just how many benefits there were, but costs.
Thank you. Gary Hinneman, to be followed by Mark Cooney.
My name's Gary Heineman. I'm a member of the Sapbush Coalition. As a landowner with 640 contiguous acres that is mostly forested, I am concerned about the 150-acre fragmentation requirement in your regulations. Our land falls within the general outline of your matrix block north of Highway 206 by Triangle, New York. In 1960, when I started hunting on the property I now own, it was a mosaic of old abandoned farm fields and some historic woodlots. Since then, it has grown into a mostly wooded stand, which we now manage for timber growth and hunting deer and grouse. This land never was and is not now home to the black-throated blue warbler and has a rich, robust growth of timber and wildlife. In order to grow the two of the most valuable trees in the forest, cherry and oak, you need open patch cuts in your forest as recommended by my forester and Cornell University researchers' letters to me these past few years. My own experience with managing my land for 30 years now and hunting on it for 50 years is that if you do not rigorously cut cull trees and non-commercial species, then the land will revert to a non-commercial beech hemlock stand rather than commercial hardwood trees. In order to pay the high taxes on the property, it is necessary to grow quality marketable timber on the land. It should not be managed for the species the Wilderness Society 2008 study wants, rather than what is best in the best interest of the landowner paying the taxes and living on the property. How about my 50 years of firsthand observation of my property? This document and requirement is truly a violation of my property rights. I would also like to not mow any of my access roads on my property, but for certain times of year to be struck from the document. Since my land is mostly wooded, these field birds that you're concerned about will not be nesting there anyway, and it is hard to control weeds and undergrowth if the grass cannot be mowed before it germinates weed seeds without chemical spraying. Thank you for acknowledging on page 12 the executive summary in the document, quote, there is no likelihood of significant adverse impacts for underground migration of fracture fluids, unquote, and, quote, no significant adverse impacts are identified with regard to the disposal of liquid waste. 1.5 years is a long time to wait to study this. It is time to move forward with responsible development of this national resource, so my 22 and 23-year-old sons don't have to go to the Middle East and fight for oil. Our energy independence starts here, and I believe my land can be protected and developed at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you.